Hey, I just wanted to cut this little video here and chat a little bit about bust adjustments. Now, bust adjustments is something that comes up a lot for people. As we all know, we are all different sizes, and when it comes to your bust, it's no different. And when it comes to patterns, they're typically made for kind of an average in the middle bust. But today I want to kind of specifically talk more about adjusting patterns for t-shirts, but I do also really want to help you get just independent in adjusting whatever pattern you come up with into whatever project you want to make it into. So I'm not going to film a video here that shows me adjusting a pattern. There's a million videos and a million ways, some more complicated, some easier. I'll mention a few, but I want to talk more today about figuring out what the result is that you really want and what you need to adjust to get the result that you want, because at the end of the day, that's what we're really looking for when we're adjusting patterns. Is we're wanting to achieve a specific result, and we know the pattern using it as is not going to get us there. So what is it that we need to think about when we're adjusting the bust in a t-shirt pattern? So first of all, regardless of what it is, I always like to take a look at the fabric we're going to use, because knit fabrics, any fabrics really, but knit fabrics, they have different amount of stretches or stretch to them. The fabrics will have different drape to them. Some will have two-way stretch, some will have just a one-way stretch, or just a little bit of stretch in one direction and a lot in another direction. So all of these things can kind of dictate how much room you need in a pattern. So if you've made the pattern already and you know how you like it to fit, if you choose a totally different fabric, you may want to adjust it, or it may fit a little bit different depending on what fabric you use. So getting a feel for your fabrics beforehand and thinking about how does this compare to what I've used before on this pattern, or if it's a brand new pattern, checking to see if the pattern has kind of a little stretch gauge, in that you can measure up how much does your fabric stretch in an inch or 2 centimeters, or whatever the stretch amount is on the stretch gauge compared to what they're suggesting for that material. Second thing we want to think about is how does the pattern's measurements really compare to your body's measurements? Do you need extra length in the pattern, or do you just need extra width in the pattern? So if you measure, I always love to measure from the top of my shoulder. So measuring from the top of your shoulder and down your back to your waistline, or measuring from the top of your shoulder over top of your bust point to your waistline, you'll notice, especially if you have a bigger bust, that measurement is longer. And so measuring your pattern to see how that compares to what your body measurement is will give you a good idea of if you need to add length to your pattern or not. Now, the nice thing about doing a bust adjustment in a t-shirt is that you can add a little bit of extra length to the front of the t-shirt and ease it into the side seam right under the arm, right in the area of the bust itself. So you wouldn't want to ease it in along the entire side seam, because you'll get a little bit of a bulge kind of over the tummy area as well. So typically you'll want to put a little notch kind of at the height of where your bra strap is. So keep the material even, the side seam the same length from the hem up to about where the bottom of your bra strap is, and then ease in that extra material. You can do about 1.5 centimeters, or about, kind of max is about 5/8 of an inch, so a little bit over 1/2 inch. But it depends on the size of the t-shirt too. You know, if you're doing a smaller t-shirt, excuse me, there's that COVID cough again. Yeah, if you're doing a smaller t-shirt, then obviously you can't ease in as much as if you're doing a bigger t-shirt. and you'll be able to kind of see that too with the material, because you won't want, you'll know you have too much if it's puckering, right? So when you're trying to get that eased in and it's puckering, but kind of rule of thumb is about 1.5 centimeters, or 5/8 of an inch there on to ease it in on the side seam. So that being said, sometimes you'll need to add some extra circumference to a t-shirt. So oftentimes t-shirts will be the same size front and back, but as we also know, if we take our body measurements, if you measure from side seam to side seam, the front of your body or the back of your body, with the bust being in the front, that will also be a longer measurement. So when you're doing a bust adjustment, there's so many ways that you can do it. You can divide that extra amount that you need to add by 4 and add it to the front and the back, or you can just divide it by 2 and just add it purely to the front of your pattern. There's no right or wrong way to do a bust adjustment. There's a million ways that lead upwards. The question is what is the result that you are looking for, and what is the best method to use for you. So any time I always say it's better to use a method that you understand rather than a method that is just too complicated, right? There's a lot of more complicated techniques, but if it's just too much, it's not going to get you where you need to go if you're missing steps or if you're not understanding it properly. And practice makes perfect as well, right? So sometimes you do need to just have a little bit of grace with yourself and experience how that knit would work compared to a different knit, and how you like it on your body. I love to look at my closet too and say, okay, what is my favorite t-shirt? What kind of knit is it? Or if I do already have a knit that I've bought already and I want to make sure that my pattern for that is going to work out well, and then check my closet and see if there's anything similar to it and try it on. What things do I like about the garment? What things do I not like about the garment? You can copy things you like, and you can steer clear of the things that you don't like. Another thing when it comes to doing a bust adjustment on t-shirts, really the easiest method that I really love is just doing the pivot method for people. So just pivoting out from the shoulder point and the amount that you need on the side seam, because that'll make sure that we don't change anything in the armhole, but we kind of extend a little bit more in the front there and get the extra that we need. And again, then you can pivot out from the bottom of your pattern, from the hemline out at the side seam as it goes up as well, and then you're not getting extra width in the hem. But it depends, again, what is the result that you're looking for. You might want a little bit of extra width in the hem if you like it to your t-shirt. Sorry. It's what I get for trying to film a video when I have COVID, right? At least we're not contagious on virtual. So anyways, yeah, it depends on if you want extra width in your hem or not. So that's another thing to think about when, where, and how you're adding the extra material is. You can simply add extra length to your t-shirt if you want still a really nice fitted type fit, because typically t-shirt material, when you have it in the right grain line, it will be more stretchy right and left. So just balancing out your vertical lines could be enough, and you don't even need to add extra material on the side seam. Whereas obviously if you're doing a woven material or a material with no stretch, if the circumference measurement around your bust measurement, the pattern is too small to fit around, it's not going to work, and you definitely need to add more material that way. One other tip that I love to give when it comes to t-shirts, and if you're wondering about ease, just because with t-shirts and knit material you often have negative ease, and if you're adding extra room on the side seam to get the bust adjustment that you need to accommodate your bust, then it might be a little bit tricky to know how to adjust for the ease. So for that, I always love to suggest taking your measurements and looking at the pattern. What size do they suggest for your bust size? And then measuring the pattern at the height of the bust and see what that measurement is. Because if they are looking at a negative ease across the bust line with that pattern, then if you're measuring the size that they would suggest that you make to accommodate your bust measurement, then you'll be able to find out what they suggest for the amount of negative ease, and you can then work with that measurement, whatever measurement you take off the pattern at the height of the bust on the right size. You can work with that measurement for the size that you're going with in enlarging the bust circumference. Because the thing is, the reason why really we want to do this bust adjustment rather than just obviously making the size that would accommodate our bust is we want the rest of the t-shirt to fit the rest of our body. So just doing a bust adjustment is a lot easier than having the shoulders too big, the neck hole too wide, the hem possibly too wide if you want a tapered hem and you don't want it to just drape off your bust and go straight down, and all of those things. So picking the size that really fits the majority of your measurements. If there's one measurement that's off, adjusting the pattern just to that one measurement is a lot easier. So I know that was a ton of information, but I hope that was helpful to give you some insight into, okay, thinking about what are the things that might not fit properly on this pattern, and where would I want to adjust it? Where would I want to add the material for this fabric, for this pattern, for my body to get the result that I'm really looking for? Okay, I'll talk to you soon. Have a great day. Bye now.